Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Podcast with myself, Alex Rhodes, and my glamorous assistant, Dr. Tim Podlogar. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great. It's sunny in Birmingham. It was raining yesterday, so today the energy levels are much higher than yesterday.
I was actually thinking about this yesterday, is that because, certainly I'm British, but in Britain, and you live here too, we're so fanatical about the weather, and we've kind of taken it up to talk about the weather every time we get on this show. I think you should be the weather forecaster every time we get on here, and you can tell us what's going to happen. That could be a nice new spin to the podcast.
Well, yeah, I was in Slovenia for the past, 1 weekend and 1 week of Italy, and it's just normal to have sun every single day in the summer. It's just it's sunny, it's warm, it's too hot, and come on, I want some clouds. Whereas here it's just I want sun, just want sun, and then it's like a heat wave, and then everyone is yeah.
But we've got, at the time we're recording this, we've just finished the Olympics. Did you catch any of that? The road, some of the road race and the TT, obviously Remco.
Olympics?
No. Have you said this last time? How can you not watch the Olympics?
The only event I watched was actually females climbing, because Slovenia was won the gold medal, and that was the only event I watched.
Do you know what's actually interesting on that? Because in the climbing, I don't know the details of this, but it goes back to our latest podcast with Penny on Reds. And the climbing policy now has a certain, it has something in there to do with energy availability, and the stipulation that they have to be, they can't have certain, let's say, just nutritional influences, or I don't know what checks they're doing, but they're one of the first kind to go and do that. And, I'm sure people can look it up if they want further information. But it's a real interesting thing that governing bodies are now starting to look at nutritional influence and the effect that it can have on people's health. I don't know if you've come across any of that or heard about it, or just happy watching it.
This girl that won, Yania Garambret, she was very vocal about low energy availability and emphasizing how problematic it is in climbing. So they are definitely talking about it, but I don't know more than this because I'm not really following this sport.
Yeah, again, I don't know the details, but it seems as if you can't compete if you're presenting symptoms of low energy availability. Which I suppose is a nice step just to look after people in the sport, I guess, from a long-term health perspective.
Yeah, for sure. There are many sports, and one climbing is one of those that red S can be very prevalent, and the next one is probably ski jumping and any of those really just weight-related sports. I think this can come even before cycling and endurance sports.
And speaking of cycling, we've got the Vuelta coming up, which is starting, as we speak now, it starts tomorrow. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, kind of. I'm a bit scared, but let's see.
Obviously, you'll be working pretty hard over that time, but hopefully it'll be a good race.
Well, I'll be working from home, but let's say that I will be following because I have to. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't.
So, kind of moving on to what we want to chat about today is we've got a super interesting topic, which I think can have a lot of emotional, I wouldn't say reactions from people, but it can be controversial in lots of different ways. And what we really want to talk about is the influence of a vegan diet on endurance performance. And I know there are people out there, and it's worth us saying that, people might choose this for ethical reasons or, personal reasons. And what we really want to do is try and close that and focus on how that might influence endurance performance, what things might be problematic or might look out for. So we're going to get into a little bit of that, but we've got a fantastic guest with us today. I'm really excited. He is a professional triathlete. He's been a legend of Exeter for a long, long time, with over 20 plus Exeter titles. Hopefully I've got these right, but I'm sure he'll correct me. And I'm very fortunate to call a friend of mine as well. So welcome, Benny Allen. How you doing, Ben?
Yeah, g'day guys. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, pretty excited to have a chat to you today.
Was I right with the 20 plus titles that you've got?
Yeah, that's right.
It's been a pretty, you've been in the Xterra game quite a few years now. But it didn't all start there, did it? I think, I suppose just give us a bit of your background of where it all started.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I wasn't really into triathlon when I very first started. I grew up doing a sport called surf life saving. So it involves obviously surf swimming, board paddling, ski paddling, running up and down the beach, competing against other Aussie athletes, I suppose. And I did that when I first started when I was 9. And then progressed through the ranks and then raced the professional surf Ironman series. Did the Coolangatta Gold, which is a long distance endurance surf event here in Australia. And from that, I got selected to sort of transition into triathlon. They were putting together a national talented identification program down at the AIS, and I suppose after I competed at the Coolangatta Gold, I led the race, but unfortunately, I ended up fading towards the last 10K in the run, and I ended up 4th. From there, though, the Triathlon Australia saw something in me and said, look, we're putting together a talent ID sort of camp in a couple of weeks' time. We're looking at athletes outside of triathlon to come across into triathlon to see if they can potentially go to the London Olympics. And they said, we'll give you a coach, we'll train you up, we'll give you a bike and all the equipment you need. So I went and spoke to my parents, and I thought, this is too good of an opportunity. I'd sort of felt as though I'd achieved everything I'd wanted to in surf life saving. I'd represented Australia, I'd won a few world titles and won a few Australian medals in surf. So then I transitioned to triathlon, and I haven't looked back since. My first ever triathlon was a World Cup in Ishigaki in Japan. So got thrown straight into the deep end.
Nice.
Obviously, the swimming was no problem. I led out of the water. I felt that was pretty easy, and then jumped on the bike and sort of rolled around for 40 Ks in the pack. And I thought, well, this triathlon gig's not too bad. And obviously I got off and started the run, and it was a whole nother level. I think I went from second off the bike, started the run to 23rd or something. So it's a good way to learn and to experience it. And then obviously over the next few years, obviously that's all I focused on, was just trying to transition myself from being a surf swimmer. So I was like built in the upper body, big arms, big shoulders, to transition to put all that focus now on run speed and cycling strength and that kind of thing. So I could sort of fine tune my triathlon ability. And then from there, I missed out on going to London, and I tried to continue to keep pursuing and chasing that goal of qualifying for Australia to go to the Olympics, but it never eventuated. I managed to still travel around the world and meet some amazing people. I met my wife, who is also a triathlete, and then I went in the off season, did an Xterra race, an off-road triathlon, and fell in love, and the rest is history.
Nice. So how long has it been since that first Xterra race? Can you remember when that was?
Well, mate, probably about 15 years ago. The first ever one I did was in Switzerland, at Pragen. I think I borrowed a bike off a friend. I was living not too far away in Besançon. I got a lift to go to do the race, and like I said, I borrowed the bike, and I just loved it. The whole atmosphere behind it. Everyone was laid back and sort of an adventurous type of triathlon. You could still swim. You were mountain biking and you were trail running, and it was everything I was looking for. Like, I enjoyed the pressure of trying to gain points and race for Olympic selection and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think pressure is a privilege, and I thrive on that kind of stuff, and I still enjoy it to this day. But the whole laid back type mountain bike style sort of concept of racing really sort of shown, and I just loved every part of it. And I just went on to continue to find that there was a whole world tour of exterior races, and I travelled all around the world. I went to 36 different countries every year. I didn't see a winter for 10 years. I went summer. I went back to Australia for summer.
That's really nice.
To America, yeah. So to be honest, yeah, it's been life changing. It's been phenomenal.
And of course, you've gone through those 15 years that you've got there, but 20 plus titles, but you've had third in the world 3 times. Am I right? In 2013, 14, and 16.
Yeah, I've come close a few times. And to finish third, just solidified myself up the pointy end of the scale with the world's best in the sport. So I think for me, being a swimmer sort of sets me up to have a good race. I'm always up that pointy end, and then it's a matter of got my riding and running legs. It'll hold me to finish on the podium. So yeah, I've come close a few times, but never been able to crack that top step at the world champs.
And you'll over that time, I think you'll have come across like Javier Gomez and a few of those boys who have dipped their toes into the Xterra world as well.
Yeah, I think my era of racing, Javier Gomez, like Conrad Stoltz, some of the world's best. Mickey Weiss was there one year; he's won it, and obviously it wasn't meant to be. So, but no, I had a good run. I had a good journey with it all, and I'm still going now. So I still keep amazing myself and surprising my ability each time I sort of put my toe on that start line.
Yeah, nice. And what were like the biggest differences that you found going from the ITU road Olympic style racing to the Xterra? Because obviously the demands are different. You've just spoke about like the vibes different. It's a little bit more of I wouldn't say less tactical. It's still very tactical, and you get in little groups and things like that. But compared to the road race, like you said, if you come out of the swim and you sit in the group, and it's like, yeah, who can run the fastest here? Like, what was the biggest difference that you found?
Yeah, I suppose I don't know. Like, for me, I've always been a good swimmer. So, like I said, I've always been up the front end of the race. Like, I'd find it really difficult having to chase back up all the time. So I always knew I'd make the front pack, and for me, it always just came down to who had the best legs coming off the bike. The difference between the ITU scene and Xterra, like a lot of the times with the ITU stuff, I was racing for Australia to gain ranking points for qualification and to get Australia up there, so we could guarantee 3 spots in the Olympics. And a lot of the time, I got told where I was going to race, and rather than Xterra, I get to go and choose the races I want to do, and I sort of race for myself in a way. I still get to represent my country and stuff like that, but it's by my choice, and it's what best sort of feel that I have that I'm going to do well at what particular race, sort of thing. I remember Triathlon Australia, we had like a European crew got sent over, and we're based in Vitoria, Spain, and they sort of split us up. All the good swimmers went to Poland, and all the runners went to like a race in Czech. And then it got flipped on its head, because the race that all the swimmers went to go and do in Poland got turned into a duathlon, and the race in Czech was like just a normal race. So really, like, they should have sent us the other way, but all the Australian squad that got sent there, we all got smoked, as you can imagine, because we're all the swimmers sort of thing. But like stuff like that. The experience obviously wasn't as good as I've had with the whole exterior scene, and being able to go and do races for myself. Obviously, it is a bit of a pressure cooker, and you've got to really perform to solidify your position within the squad, sort of thing. And I mean, I didn't mind that. I thrived on that pressure, like I said before. But it wears on your ability to try to back up. Obviously, I'm a long way from home, from family and friends, and limited contact back then. I never really had Facebook and all that kind of stuff. The internet was very rare. I was going off like paper maps that I had to read and try and navigate with public transport and that kind of thing. There was no Uber back when I first started. So
you get lost nowadays.
Oh, mate, to be honest, yeah. Kids these days wouldn't know any of that. You got iPhone, you got internet, at the click of a finger. So, it was good. It was challenging. I enjoyed everything. It taught me to be very resilient, and I think that's what's enabled me to sustain this over a long period of time. Like, I'm getting towards, almost pushing 40 now, but I'm still competing against guys that are half my age. So I don't know. There must be something in the water that I'm doing right. So it seems to be working.
Hopefully we can talk about some of that. But I suppose just before we move on, I can't let it go by without talking about your cameo, which it was a time we was on the Gold Coast. It was the ITU Worlds. It was the grand final over there, and we were over there. My other half was racing, and I'm sat in the apartment that I was staying in. I've got the TV on because I was just out there for training holiday and enjoy myself. And I got my feet up, and when I'm in Australia, I'm going to flick Bondi Beach on, and we're getting into it. And who's on the screen? Not only Benny Allen. I mean, you were pretty young then, but those must have been from your surf lifesaving days.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I made a bit of a cameo appearance on Bondi Rescue. I think I was like 18 or 19 back then. We had a lifeguard. We had a lifeguard challenge between the different councils. I worked for Wollongong City Council at the time, and Bondi Waverley Council. Their council's called, which is Bondi is in that council. We competed in a lifeguard challenge, and our council ended up beating the Bondi lifeguards and winning the lifeguard challenge.
Nice. Good. I mean, you probably get fed up of it being over in Australia, but certainly for us as tourists, like Bondi Beach Rescue is the pinnacle of Australian TV, and we love it. So it was nice to see your face on there.
And it's good viewing. They obviously do some pretty amazing work there. They've saved countless lives with the work that they do. So it's good that they get some recognition and showcase the hard work that goes into saving people's lives on our Aussie beaches.
Yeah, because it is a big thing over there. It is a lot of coastal towns, and I know it's a super important thing over there. But yeah, so kind of like just moving on, and you got the IT Worlds now, ITU World Cross Triathlon now in Townsville that you've been prepping for. Are you looking forward to a home race?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I probably would have hung up the goggles a few times now, but this race was meant to happen a few years ago, but obviously COVID squashed that from happening. We're finally here. It's finally happening. I'm really looking forward to it. It sort of ticks all the boxes that I would have liked to have the race to be a bit longer. It's very short for an ITU race. It's only a 1K swim, 20K bike, and a 6K run. So, I'm sort of, as I get older, losing my fast twitch fibers, but the old diesel engine never dies. don't mind the longer stuff. But yeah, no, it is what it is. I'm looking forward to it. I've prepped for that distance. So yeah, it should be a good all-round race.
Cool. So with like your wealth of experience, you know, you've been in the game most of your life. We want to talk about certainly your nutritional experience over the years, and we'll come back to that a bit further down. But there's there's a period of time in your life, and you know, we were racing in Europe at the time, and I remember speaking to you at the time about it, where you changed your nutrition, and I suppose I don't know the full story and whether that was for health options, whether that was something else. But you took what was pretty much a vegan diet up, if I'm correct.
Yeah, most definitely.
What,
Yeah. So yeah, back when I was racing over in Europe, I suppose when I came back from a season of racing over there back home to Australia, I had obviously a lot of stomach issues, especially when I was racing and sort of at that high end. I never felt as though I'd sort of achieved my full potential. I always was never fueled correctly, and no matter what, the nutritionists at the ALS sort of helped me with, always felt as though I lacked in my energy expenditure sort of approach to how I sort of attacked the race. That being said, I went and had some tests and stuff like that, and they came back with I had a stomach ulcer, Helicobacter pylori, which was the medical term for it, which was like a hole in your stomach, which was an ulcer, and it was causing sort of issues with my digestion. And there were certain foods that I was reacting to that would have a negative effect on my performance. And it took me a long time to be able to determine what foods. Obviously, you do that process of elimination to figure it all out. And a lot of it came down to the nightshade vegetables, which were sort of causing like sort of that acidic reaction to like having a negative effect. My body found it really difficult, and I was taking away from performing because my body was trying to process the foods that I was digesting, sort of thing. So yeah, and obviously the meats and all that kind of stuff, the carcinogenics in the meats and stuff was all having a negative effect, and especially sort of fueling that stomach ulcer. And I went and saw a naturopath, and he believed that if I was able to sort of really hone in my diet and really focus on trying to eat foods that gave me better performance rather than going down that whole medicine path of taking antibiotics and steroids and all that kind of stuff to try and solve the issue. They always said to me that you'll still have a lot of impact from all that medicine. Your body still needs to process to get rid of it. And I just thought, well, I don't want to waste all my time taking all that medicine and then having to flush it all out of my system, and half of the stuff you can't have these days with all the banned substances and stuff like that. And I just thought, nah, I'm going to go down the whole natural path. I'm going to really focus on my health and really try to just try and cleanse my body as best I could so I could fuel for my performance to try and get the most out of myself. And that's what led me down to eating the way I did, eating like a non-meat, non-dairy. Like I'm sort of dairy intolerant anyway. As a kid, I had really bad asthma, and obviously the full cream milks and stuff like that gave me a lot of phlegm, which caused a lot of mucus build up, and then I was struggling to breathe. And that's why my parents got me into swimming initially. That's how that swimming whole background started. And then I sort of got obsessed with it, and I've just swam ever since. Like it's just regimented in my brain that I swim all the time. So I just love it. But that whole sort of change in lifestyle was because it was due to that sort of health issue, which led me down to eating that way.
And what like obviously you're changing, you know, some preferred foods or routines and things like that, and taking some of those food groups out of your diet. What challenges did you face as an athlete? Because, you know, training loads are pretty high. The consumption of food is pretty high to fuel some of that, and recovery and everything. So, you know, what challenges did you have in choosing your new food groups? Like, could you eat enough? Was there enough available? And then how did you recognize anywhere where that actually impacted your performance? Was it your training performance? Was it your race performance? Was recovery not as good? How did that kind of feel as you went through that?
Yeah, well, I noticed a massive change with a lot of different things. My recovery was amazing. Like, I could go out and do a hard interval run session or a hard interval session on the bike, and I'd be able to recover and back it up and go again the next day, just because my body felt so refreshed and cleansed after eating good, healthy foods that didn't contain all those negative sort of aspects to it. Which was great, but in saying that, I found it really hard to consume the amount of food I needed in order to perform at that high level. Like, I felt really bloated all the time, trying to eat so much rice and pasta and eating beans and trying to substitute different foods in so that I could make sure I had enough proteins and all that kind of stuff. Like, obviously you can't really get much vitamins and minerals from lettuce and salads and all that kind of stuff, but we regularly eat here in Australia. It's trying to find those whole hearty foods that really aid your performance, like, you know, your healthy fats. You got your avocados and your nuts and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like I was transitioning myself to using fat as a fuel too. So my whole body system, it took a few months to transition, but I never really utilized my fat source as a fuel. But in saying that, I managed to, felt that adaptation of transition to go from, just solely focusing on carbohydrates and sugars as a fuel source to utilizing now fat as a fuel. So to finding that balance, it took me a while, but in saying that, I lost a lot of weight. Like, I dropped down to like almost 62 kilos. Like, now I weigh about 68, 69. I'm not that tall. I'm 178 centimeters tall. But yeah, in saying that, like, I dropped a lot of weight just because I was underfueling myself, but I was still trying to train the same amount that I did before. So it was quite challenging. I definitely underperformed at a lot of my races, and I had a lot of negative impact from it. But I wholeheartedly believed in the process I was on because it was better for my health long term rather than the short term. I was looking years and years beyond where I was, because I go into races and I felt so underfueled, but I couldn't dare look at another banana because I'd already ate like 5 or 6 of them. I sort of, like, my palate was getting so overwhelmed with eating the same sort of foods. And the one thing, I suppose, from my time traveling around the world, it was very difficult to find good quality food, especially around Asia and stuff like that. There's obviously a lot of vegan junk food, but there's not much, sort of vegan healthy food that that is relatively available to you, sort of thing, as a source, as an athlete.
Yeah. So I just want to bring Tim in on this, and perhaps you have some thoughts or experience, Tim, around what are some of the things that, let's say, people are either undertaking a vegan diet for their for ethical reasons or health reasons, like Ben here. What are some of the things that we really need to be careful of and really need to watch out, or some limitations of doing that?
I feel like for years the biggest problem that was emphasized was kind of lack of protein quality. that has been like kind of suggested, like vegan alternatives or like plant-based alternatives to like meat or dairy products are bad and they're much worse, and that we should like find a way how to get the protein sources in on a vegan diet, and like everything was about protein. Now we know that like protein is not, in my opinion at least, like as important as one we thought, that we put too much emphasis on it. But also new evidence suggests that like if you structure and find good sources of protein coming from a vegan diet, I think they are just as equally as good as whey protein or anything else. It's just like the taste can be different, and like you need to be kind of smart about it. So I don't really see a problem in following a vegan diet these days. It can be a bit more difficult, like, but if you like into it and you like really pay attention to what you eat and what you get, and like think about it, then there are no real issues. Perhaps some micronutrients, I don't know, vitamin B12 and stuff like that. But that can be supplemented if you, again, like if you think about it. So like probably like 10 years ago or so, people were really like nutritionists. We were all like very skeptical about recommending athletes to go to a vegan diet. But now I think this kind of change and we accept this. And there are many, many professional athletes on a vegan diet that are achieving as good results as those on a, let's call it, normal diet.
Yeah, and there's some there's lots of discussion around this, obviously, and we can get quite lost in that. But in terms of, like you said, with B12s, and is there influences in iron as well? Because there's discussions around non-Hem A iron and Hem A iron, which we get from meats. Do we see any issues with that? Obviously we're then not getting it from meats and we have to get it from somewhere. Do we see more cases of anemia or low iron?
Probably like all those deficiencies are more prevalent in vegan athletes, perhaps just for the sake of like not paying enough attention to these kind of things. So that's why kind of making regular checks with your doctor or like a nutritionist makes a lot of sense, to basically see where you are, and you don't guess but you then like take action and supplement. But like in professional sports, like even on a normal diet, we very often supplement iron anyway, just because, well, the demands for iron are so high, and because of the inflammation, the absorption is low anyway. So you have to be kind of strategic about it, especially if you're doing some altitude training camps. So I wouldn't like say that's so much different. I think we are just like, trying to find excuses not to go to a vegan diet. But I think it's like these days, I don't think there is like any evidence to say, well, it's not suitable.
Yeah. And Ben, did you, like, over that time as well, did you feel like there was anything that you were either lacking, or, did you get tests, or did you just feel it out in a sense that I'm just going to try and eat some of these and see how I feel?
Yeah, I definitely had tests over the duration of it, and B12 was lacking. I had to go and have injections just to sustain the amount that was required. But iron, I wasn't too bad. But yeah, the B12 was definitely one thing that my doctor was very concerned about, sort of thing.
Yeah. And did you find, like, from a sports performance side, like, did you not that, a lot of it's just sugar at the end of the day, but it might be, forms of recovery drinks, or, did you have to change your approach to how you looked at that? Did you supplement, which obviously we just spoke about, B12? How did that change your approach to fueling during the race and recovery afterwards, if it did at all?
Yeah, well, for me, it was just a matter of just trying to get as many calories in as possible. Fueling, I used to come up and create my own gels and stuff like that. the little sachets and build my own little gels with coconut, a little bit of honey and natural sugar and stuff like that, and a little bit of fat source like peanut butter, almond butter, that kind of thing, to try and really like hone in on the ultimate performance as naturally as possible. Recovery wise, obviously, at triathlon events, there's always, you got a platter of fruits and stuff like that, but it was making sure, I had things that I could eat relatively available, with like the dairy-free sort of milks and that kind of thing that you can get now. It's becoming more common, like the oat milks, almond milks, and all that kind of stuff. That stuff's all relatively not too bad, but obviously, with the protein, that was probably one of the main things that I found the hardest, like eating lots of beans and trying to find substitutes to try and get proteins and stuff like that is probably one of the main key items that I really found really hard to sort of keep on top of.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that was even. I mean, it's hard as an athlete traveling around the world anyway, and having to, even if you have no, I wouldn't say them restrictions, but specific food choices. That's difficult when you travel to a different country and you're jumping from one to the next. Like, was that just part of the challenge in itself?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I suppose, like when I was competing pretty seriously, I was lucky that I had some really good sponsors on board, and one of those sponsors was Nduranz, and they were a vegan protein powder company. And they also had another product that was multivitamins as well. So that's basically what I sort of lived on post recovery, and as in supplementation, to be like post hard workout or hard race. You can mix it up with water, and you're able to get it enough in until you were able to get to a decent feed in you after the race, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it is fascinating, and it, from both sides of the coin here, it feels like the nutrition and different nutritional approaches are just becoming a bit easier, a bit more prevalent, but ones where we perhaps restrict some food groups, or we choose not to have those food groups. It appears that we just have to pay that little bit more attention to some of the details of perhaps where we're not getting things, and how we might manage that, especially if we're traveling as athletes, and looking at how much calories and protein and carbohydrates we're getting from that to fuel our performance at the end of the day.
The one thing I suppose I was able to, you really are in tune with your body, and I suppose after a while you become to be able to adapt to certain environments that you're in, and be resilient to know that the foods that you need in order to perform at that ultimate sort of level, which I think is key in a way. Like at first, when I first started on the journey, I was under fueling. I wasn't eating enough, and those are the lessons that I learned along the way that taught me, okay, now I need to eat a bit more. I need to be strategic in what I can eat and when I can eat it, sort of thing, and that kind of things. And obviously dates were another really good thing, but dates and then going for a run is not a good thing. Like they backfire. It's not good. So I've learned that lesson. Don't eat too many dates before you go running, because you'll lose your socks and what else? You maybe even your singlet. They won't get back again. But yeah, obviously with all the fruits you're eating, a lot of the fibrous foods and stuff, that's one thing. No one ever talks about it. You need to go to the toilet a lot all the time. So so obviously that's what I mean about being getting tongue-tied, being very careful what you eat at certain times when you're going to train and stuff like that, because it can backfire on you. And it's just coming up with a bit of a plan. And I was pretty good in that. I wrote down a lot of the things that worked and didn't work, and when they worked and that kind of thing. So it gave me a concrete idea of how my body was really able to use that fuel to to its ultimate to be able to get the most out of myself.
Nice. And what would you recommend this? Would you recommend this to other athletes?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I was probably the best I've ever felt. Like my endurance was next level. I felt as I could go on forever, and my recovery was amazing. I felt the healthiest I've ever felt. But to be able to sustain it took a lot of discipline, and obviously there was times where I would go really hungry because literally when you're traveling, there's not much, you can't really get the food that you need, sort of thing. So now that I'm at home, it's obviously very easy, and you can get all the foods that you like and have them stored and stuff like that. But when you're traveling, it's a whole nother level again, and I don't know that I could go to that whole another level, because I've been there and done that before already.
So, Tim, what, from your perspective? So, what are the big things that we, if someone, is undertaking these dietary choices, what are the key things that we really need to pay attention to make sure that our performance stays at its level or continues to develop?
I think like one of the biggest things when people decide to change the diet, like be it a ketogenic diet or a vegan diet, you basically, like when you go to the grocery store to buy food, you basically can't buy half of the food suddenly that you used to buy. And as a result, many people tend to undereat and then lose body mass. Ben had this same issue, and I had the same issue when I went to the ketogenic diet. Like you basically lose weight because I can't really eat that much like these foods that I'm used to. So kind of making sure that you still get the same amount of calories that you require, I think is really, really important. And then once you have a diet, like you need to be like kind of keep paying attention to what's happening and what's working and what's not working. Like having a massive amount of fiber in the diet, for instance on a vegan diet, can obviously like backfires and like cause gastrointestinal issues, and you have to be ready for that. Like, and you need to think, okay, it's probably the fiber, it's not a diet as such, it's the fiber. So what are you going to do to basically reduce the fiber intake before doing a run session? You can still do it. Like rice is still low in fiber, and there are some like fruits that are lower in fiber. So you can probably find a way how to do it. It's just like trial and error a bit, and like asking somebody that has been doing it for years can actually be a big time saver, because basically like you can learn from somebody else's experiences. And like think about like what can go wrong, like about like it's probably like too late to get a infusion of iron. It's better to get like before you start a diet and think about what the problems can be, and like vitamin B12 is you're probably not getting enough. So when you make a move, you start supplementing it straight away. Things like that, just to think about. And I think then you're just like fine. There is obviously some time to adapt, but so you don't want to do this in a peak season, but probably in off season, and then you transition. And one other thing is probably, from my point of view, if you're not doing it for ethical reasons, I would still leave the room for some meat to be present in the diet. For instance, some chicken, some poultry, some fish, and sometimes some other stuff, just in case when you travel that you don't come to the point that you don't have any alternatives. Because, well, it's not a good idea to have like to go to a country and then have nothing to eat. I know, like, for instance, like when I go to a different country, like even when I travel home to Slovenia, I have a bit of a problem myself because I don't find what I'm used to be eating in the UK and I'm eating everything, and even then I struggle. But I can imagine it's even worse or even more difficult for a vegan person to like go there and find what they're used to. So I think this kind of be prepared to change and still not be like fully into one diet, I think makes quite a bit of a difference.
And are you still, are you still fully practicing that approach now, Ben, or are you a little bit, do you drift back and have some different food groups now and again?
No, I don't fully practice that anymore. No, I drift back and do include meat products into my diet now. But I still, just in general, don't. I love fish and occasionally I'll have a steak sort of thing. But yeah, just generally, I'm not a big meat eater. I think family tends to eat more vegetables and salads and pastas and rice in general sort of thing. So yeah, occasionally we'll have some fish and some meat and stuff like that into our diet.
I think that's one of the biggest things certainly that I see happening is that, we might coin these different diets of vegan, a keto, or, vegetarian. But ultimately, I think some of certainly what we see in the media and in the research, we're comparing bad, meat, dairy products versus, fruits and vegetables and everything else. And I think there's this real conflict that, some meat's bad and, this is bad for our health. But like you just mentioned there, Ben, I think there's an overriding thing. If whether you're into whatever diet is, as long as you're having good quality, you're having, a range of fruit and vegetables that are of good quality as well. And that, we have a little bit of fish or we have this, again, we're talking from performance, not ethical sides of things, that actually that's the most important part to our health. And often we compare this to people who are perhaps, eating out of fast food, like, chains like I'm going to throw McDonald's out there, but McDonald's always gets the bad one. But there's, you go down the high street and there's loads of things that just give you bad quality. And all of a sudden, by actually, by virtue of focusing on something else that incorporates more vegetables in there and better quality protein, better quality like carbohydrates and grains and fats, then naturally our health just becomes better anyway.
Yeah, definitely. If you buy good quality produce, you can taste the difference between the stuff that you get from the supermarkets these days, or it just tastes much fresher and the ingredients is much more juicier. So that's what we tend to focus on and spend our money on is good quality meats from a butcher, not the supermarket, and vegetables from a local producer rather than going to the supermarket sort of thing. So yeah, like obviously a bit of trial and error when I first started it, but now I think we've come up with an overall good approach, and sort of now it's a family sort of thing where my wife and my son sort of I suppose we get good quality produce because we want to try to all perform and live longer, so that we can enjoy life.
Nice. And your your time, you've, like we were saying before, you've had a lot of time in the professional game, pretty much most of your life. How have you observed the changes in nutrition over the years? And for myself and Tim, we're a bit more in the kind of academic side, and sports nutrition is just fast developing over recent years. But through your time, how has that kind of looked like? What was it like back in your life, saving days, and then through ITU, and you landed in, when was it, 2017, 2018, where you changed some things. What does that picture look like?
Yeah, well, it's drastically changed over the years. It's evolved. It's hard to sort of keep up with it now. Like, what water now is hydrogen water or something like that. Back in the day, we never had hydrogen water. So yeah, it's changed a lot, and I think we used to, well, when I first started through Surf Life Saving, Power Bar was big in Australia, and I used to have the Power Bar bars that you could hardly chew. You'd break your teeth trying to eat them, and just the old electrolyte drink that was so sugary. You know what I mean? It'd send you hypo, and then you'd have a massive big crash after it, sort of thing. But yeah, now it's obviously evolved heaps. You know, you got your gels and all that kind of stuff, and your hydrogen water, and your electrolyte drinks, your magnesium for recovery, and yeah, it's just insane the amount that's up there now. Like the cramping. Like I'm up here in Townsville, and it's super hot and humid, and obviously with cramping, like there's everything under the sun now. You need, you know, the old pickle juice works wonders, sort of thing. We never had that back in the day. You just used to try and muscle through it as best you could. Try and eat, get some Himalayan salt and just try and eat it, or put it under your tongue to try and get you through the cramps. But it never worked. But yeah, now with the pickle juice, that sort of does the trick for me. But yeah, it's evolved a lot, and I think it's great because it's obviously pushing the limitations of everyone's abilities, and being able to sustain those performances, you know, all the way to the finish line is ultimately what we want. And I think you don't really hear too many athletes getting GI distress and that kind of thing, because there's so many different products out there that are different for each individual athlete. I think it's been great, and it's good to see. So over the years we've trialled on a few different products and stuff like that, but now we've got some stuff that works. So yeah, it's been good.
And what would be your top three things then over your time that have made some of the biggest differences to your career?
Top three things. Just keep it simple.
Put you on the spot there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I think to keep it simple, I think the more complex you get with it, the more confused you become. Just keeping it simple, stick to your race plan, and don't sort of focus on what other people are doing, because you don't know what they've done or what they haven't done. I think if you always believe in yourself and your ability, you'll always be successful. And obviously, yeah, if you put in the hard work, it speaks volume for yourself. You can gain confidence from the hard work that you've put in. You put your foot on that start line, you never know what that next competitor has done. But if you put in the hard work and you solely believe in everything you've done to get you to that point, then you always come out a winner no matter what. And the lastly would be enjoy the moment. It comes and goes so quickly. The moment that I talk about is the journey, because the journey is it expands your lifetime. And I think the moments that come and go along that lifetime, you really need to take a step back and soak it in. As you said, I see over my period of time, so many athletes don't ever give themselves a chance to really embrace what they've been able to achieve, or how they've been able to get to where they've gotten to. So for me, it's now looking back, I've really tried to enjoy every moment that has allowed me to be successful or learn a lesson or evolve as a person, because it's given me the skills, even outside of my sporting life, to better myself in my working life or fatherhood or parenthood. And it's amazing, because sport leads you to places I never thought would be possible. So yeah, sport's an amazing gift and an opportunity that you can really sort of be whoever you want to be on that race course, and you race as hard as you want to, but enjoy that moment along the way, because you never know when you'll have another one.
And I think it goes to show us, well, you know, being new to parenthood, how fast that does go, and you turn around and, you know, what it was, you know, how fast they grow and stuff. You're like, where's that time gone? And, you know, I've been very privileged to spend a lot of time in the sporting world over my life, and you do look back and you go, wow, where has that time gone? So I think fantastic values just to lead your life by there. So thank you. And Tim, from a nutritional perspective, if the listeners are thinking about, you know, changing their dietary approach, you know, might not be going down the vegan route, but since we're talking about that, going down the vegan route, you know, what are your top 3 things that we just want to be thinking about if we're going to go on that journey?
Well, the first one would be like, why are you actually making this change? Like, what is driving it? And like, it's better to do an evolution of the nutrition rather than revolution, in my experience. To see like, okay, it's not perhaps the meat in the diet, but it's perhaps like the general way of living or of eating that I have a problem with. So go with like, see what the worst things or habits are, and then improve those rather than make a revolution of your diet, because in the long term it's gonna be much easier and much better. And then the next one is like, make educated decisions, rather than like go to the like websites that are like just claiming things and like promising great benefits from changing this and that in the diet. I think one needs to be really skeptical about all those claims. So that's because usually like you're not going to make a revolutionary like changes and suddenly your performance will go up. Like it's gonna be marginal and very small. And so find trusted sources that you can like really like get good information from. And then the third one, ask yourself again, do you really need to do this?
Well, there we go. So hopefully, you know, we can't thank you enough for coming on, Ben, and you know, we wish you all the best. The Worlds in a few days. Yourself and Jackie, you know, I've known you for a lot of years, and I'll be looking out to hear those results. So go show them how the older folk can show the kids to do it. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and we really value just all that experience and everything, time that you've spent in the sport, and hopefully the listeners can take something away from this and learn from that experience that we were able to share.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you very much, Alex, and thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's been an honour, and I look forward to it. And I'll give it a red hot crack, mate. No worries.
Sweet. Anyway, thanks very much. Ciao.